everyone, Erica Zeal here. So today I want to talk about and address shoulder pain, which all the tips that I'm going to share with you today also can help address elbow and wrist pain, because I like to talk about how everything in the body is connected, and so many times with pain and discomfort and things like that, we tend to go right to the source of it. So if you're having wrist pain or shoulder pain or elbow pain, right, it tends to get looked at specifically just there. But the bigger picture of this is that we're missing something if we're going just to that localized spot. Now, I'm not to say that there isn't something going on with that localized spot, but in order to actually really address and help to kind of fix the problem, we have to look at the body as a whole. So there's a lot more we could talk about, but I specifically want to address with the shoulders, right? So some things that we have to think about with the shoulders, right, is we can get, there's all sorts of stuff, and yes, there can be things going on with the shoulder themselves. But what typically happens is we've had poor posture, poor biomechanics, which is how we move. We don't have the fascial tensegrity that we really need through our body for optimal shoulder strength, okay? Because so many times we look at just our shoulders for the strength, when the reality of it is we need to actually look at our torso first. Our pelvis plays a role too, but I'm not going to talk too much about that today. But it's more about, okay, if we talk about what's going on with the upper body, what's going on with our mid-back? Okay, this is huge. If you don't have good connection back here, I'll turn this bra line right here, right where these funky fun straps are. All of this, if you don't know how to connect or help to hold your torso, upper torso, your neck and your head up with your mid-back, then that could be part of what's leading to the shoulder pain. So when we think about this, if we don't have a good connection here and we have this typical kyphotic roundedness, we're pulling our neck forward a little bit, right? Because we're on our computer too much, we're on our phones, right? We're not sitting tall, we're not standing tall. Then what happens when we go to move our shoulders? So when we're like this, we go to move our shoulders, where does the tension go? You can over exaggerate this and just try it on yourself. You're not gonna hurt yourself. It's just when you're rounded like this, and if you do this, and we're doing this all the time, right? Or we're even working out and we're doing shoulder presses, but we can't lengthen straight and we go to push, all the time what we're doing is we're over impinging in the front of the shoulder. It goes up into the neck. So that's the thing with our shoulders, ladies, is we really, really, really have to start to understand that our shoulders, that we can't put them aside in a box. They are an addition to our core, and our full core, remember, goes from our pelvic floor all the way up to our shoulders, right? Then our limbs are added on, our neck and our head, right? And so a lot of people that tend to have shoulder stuff, typically you're gonna feel really tight across your pecs through here. You probably have really major tightness in your neck. You might even have neck pain. You might even have headaches, migraines, things like that, right? So this is more than just the shoulders. You might even get some stuff that goes down the arm, as in numbing and tingling, and maybe you've had someone who's had tennis elbow a lot, or you're like, oh, maybe I get a little carpal tunnel. Okay, carpal tunnel, which is not typically from the wrists, it's from the shoulder. Just FYI, I've helped so many people get rid of carpal tunnel. It's really not complicated. We do not need to be having surgery to fix carpal tunnel. It's just, I think it's crazy that there's so much surgery that goes on for it because it's coming from up here. So, okay, back to the shoulders. Is when we're lifting and growing tall and we think about what we relax our shoulders. That is the other piece of this, is that even if you're like, Erica, I don't feel my mid-back, so we tend to overcompensate, and then if we jam our shoulders back, then that actually can make us want to recoil them forward again. And then these muscles here that are so tight, when we're forcing them back, this continues actually to tighten even more. I know that sounds crazy, but the body will naturally always wants to protect itself. So this is where we have to really, really start to understand we have to be gentle with our body. We cannot force a movement to happen. So when it comes to getting your mid-back to work, we have to just start to be aware of it. There are definitely exercises we can do, right? I love mid-back strengthening exercises, back extensions, things like that, but we have to do them with small controlled ranges of motion. And then as that starts to fire, as we go throughout our day, when we're sitting at our desk or standing, things like that, we want to think about, oh, let's let our shoulders relax. If we just stand here for a second, if you're sitting, standing, whatever you're doing, I want you to practice this with me. I want you to just take a deep breath in, and then exhale and think about lifting up through the sternum and letting your shoulders relax. Good. Do it again. And relax. Think about this across here, this upper chest sternum area, relaxing. This is opening, okay? Now, if you have a hard time doing that, that's okay. It's okay, because we have to recognize that where we are right now is where our body is, right? We cannot force things to shift. We can guide them, we can encourage them, we can visualize them, right? But if you notice, which is what I see all the time when I first start working with someone, especially if you have shoulder, neck pain, things like that, when you breathe in, do your shoulders do this? Right? It's like everything's so tight together that it's like the body hasn't even figured out how like to actually let your shoulders just relax, right? We have our shoulder joint here. We have our scapula right here, right? Which is, that's that piece that rubs over our ribs. And so many times we get really locked up there, right? And the other piece of this is too, is like, if we're not breathing out into our ribs here, see how I can expand out? Yeah, go up a little bit, right? But we shouldn't be going all the way super high. We should be able to like go out, like put your hands here. Breathe. We have to address what's going on with our breathing and our ribs to help us to let our shoulders chill the heck out. So honestly, let's talk about this, like recap of some of these really top things to do. Like we could get more specific, but I really just wanted to bring some more awareness to this. Is start to pay more attention to your posture. Is your mid back working to help hold you up and lengthening tall, right? Or when we're sitting and stuff, are we really rounded, right? But if we're focusing on posture, please, please, please do not jam those shoulders back. Do not do that on a regular basis, because your body will rebel against you and it can actually make things worse. Instead, what we need to be doing is lifting from the mid back through the core, of course, the front of the core as well, letting our shoulders relax. And think about, as we breathe, trying to breathe out and down versus this, okay? And so those three things to just start with can help your shoulders so much. Then if you're doing any sort of shoulder exercises, it is so important that you have good form, right? Making sure you're not just trying to push through and use a weight because you've always used it, or you think you have to keep getting stronger and using heavier weights. If you're trying to do shoulder exercises and instead of being tall, you're like this, and we're trying to do shoulders and we're like raising the shoulder up to our ear, it only is going to exacerbate all of this. Like, I just can't even stress enough. And this is why through my programs, and I will use lighter weights, especially like core rehab, for example, because we're doing a lot of healing and rehabilitating. And I get so many women, they're like, Erica, I just really couldn't believe you were going to have us only use like 2 or 3 pound weights. And holy smokes, I've never felt 2 or 3 pound weights be that effective. So this is the thing. And it's not to say you can't ever do heavy weights. I think there's it's a balance of the two, right? I lift heavier weights as well. But if we're lifting too heavy and we don't have good form and it leaves us feeling not great and we're having dysfunction and pain already, what does that do? It can only exacerbate it even more, right? So those are the things I really want you to all start to be to think about as you're working out, as you're moving throughout your day, right? This isn't just about your workouts, right? Like, yeah, it's great. I love teaching workouts. I love teaching the movement practice, but I love it even more when I see how everyone is taking what I'm teaching, applying it also to your daily life, right? So there's huge power in that. So focus on those things, ladies. Reach out if you have any questions, and yeah, tune into my Core Connections podcast. So have a wonderful afternoon.